Velasquez was one of those names, but he's fighting Travis Brown. And then looks like what will probably be the opener on the main card, TJ Dillashaw versus Rafael Asuncao. Asuncao? Yeah, we'll call him Asuncao. I like the sound of that. And then on the undercard, we've got Brunson versus Mousasi. I don't know. Half these names I can't pronounce if you can't tell. We've also got Gastelum versus Johnny Hendricks. I know him. We've got Gomi versus Miller. Northcutt versus Marin. Not Cheech, but Enrique. And Kat Zingano. We know her taking on Juliana Pena. So that is your UFC 200 card. And now let us finally address the UFC 199 that took place this past Saturday. Alright, so in the main event on UFC 199, there was a big, shocking upset, and it came via first-round knockout at the hands of Luke Rockhold, losing his championship to Michael Bisping, winning in the first round with a minute 23 remaining. Very surprising. Rockhold was a heavy favorite here. So for Bisping to come out and win so fast, so convincingly, kind of shocked everybody. And boy, do these guys have a good rivalry. This was their second fight against each other, and they can't stand each other. There was big time post-fight press conference talking and fighting, actually, amongst them, where they for real had to be separated and stuff. It was fantastic. Check that out on YouTube. But yeah, so congratulations to new champion Michael Bisping. In another championship match, we had via unanimous decision, it looks like, Dominic Cruz retained his title versus Uriah Faber, or Uriah, however you say it. I'm pretty sure it's Uriah, though. We also had Max Holloway win via decision over Ricardo Lamas. We had Dan Henderson win via knockout and get one of the performance of the nights over Hector Lombard. That ended in round 2, about halfway through. Then we had Dustin Poirier win via knockout in the first round over Bobby Green. Brian Ortega wins via knockout in round 3 over Clay Guida. Guida's a beast, too. So that was another shocker there that Ortega won that one. James Vick loses via knockout in the first round to Dariush, and Jessica Penne loses via knockout in round 2 to Jessica Andretti. I want to say I've seen Andretti's name somewhere recently. Miller loses to Caceres. We'll just Caceres. Caceres. So I'm going to assume that's pronounced Caceres. He was victorious via decision. We also had Sean Strickland beating Tom Breeze via decision, and Jonathan Wilson losing to Henrique Da Silva in round 2 via knockout. And let's see. And Reyes knocked out Kim in round 3. So boom, there's your complete 199 recap. Again, congratulations, most of all, to new champ Michael Bisping. Alright, now I think that's got to be enough UFC talk here for 1 week. I'm spent. So let's just officially put it out. There we go. Balls on Fire has officially been put out. Let us move on with the show and talk. Because, see, we had championships going on there, so that's why we were able to fuse that into the first segment when we've got all these other trophies being played for and determined here right now. So let's move over from Balls on Fire to, well, I think that the most sensible place then would be Balls on Ice. We'll talk a little hockey talk here, alright? Alright, so currently we are in the Stanley Cup Final to determine the winner who gets to hoist the Lord Stanley's Cup this year, and it is being played between the Pittsburgh Penguins, representing the Eastern Conference, and the San Jose Sharks, representing the Western Conference, appearing in the Stanley Cup Final for the very first time as a franchise. And tonight at 7 o'clock here this Thursday, June 9th, 2016, the Pittsburgh Penguins will host Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final against the San Jose Sharks. And if Pittsburgh is victorious tonight on their home ice, they will celebrate after the game by hoisting Lord Stanley's Cup. They currently have a 3-1 lead in the series over the San Jose Sharks. Every game in this series being determined by 1 goal until Monday night, that is, when Game 4 in San Jose, the Pittsburgh Penguins got their most convincing victory of the series thus far, winning 3-1 on the road. Prior to that, San Jose pulled off the overtime winner in Game 3 on their home ice, winning 3-2. That was following Pittsburgh's overtime winner 2-1 on their home ice in Game 2. And in Game 1, the Penguins won 3-2. So if you've watched the games, there's definitely, I mean, it's been quite obvious which team's playing better or is the better team. Like, I'm not saying that, but like, by no means have the games really ever been out of hand or, like determined before the clock reaches zeros for the final time. And sometimes that wasn't even enough. Twice out of the first 4, that wasn't enough. Whereas it's the exact opposite in that regards to the NBA Finals, where every game the winner has won by a large to extremely large margin of victory. So, I have heard, though, here in the state of hockey, a lot of people, commenting on how just the Stanley Cup Final isn't that exciting or competitive. I don't know. Like, I guess I can see from maybe an exciting standpoint, but I certainly would not say competitive. I feel like every game has been competitive throughout the entire game. Whether more often than not the same team ends up winning, that doesn't mean it's not a competitive series, okay? So let's just officially squash that nonsense right meow. Now, I think it is fairly consensus, hockey mind opinion, that the Penguins will close it out here on their home ice in Game 5. For some reason, I have this sneaky suspicion, I have this sneaky feeling in my gut. Okay, my brain is predicting that, yes, Pittsburgh continues to just play the better hockey tonight and they win it on their home ice. That's what my brain is saying is going to happen. But my sports gut is rumbling quite a bit. And my sports gut is telling me that the Sharks are going to either win it in the final minutes of the third period tonight somehow in a very close, low-scoring game, or they're going to find a way to send it into overtime and pull it off in overtime tonight, sending it to a Game 6, which they will win on their home ice. Because if anything, the one weakness to me throughout this entire Stanley Cup playoffs that the Penguins have shown to me, primarily in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Tampa Bay Lightning, but at other points in the season and throughout the playoffs, the Penguins' weakness is that they tend to take their foot off the gas at points in time for just inexplicable reasons. And I have the feeling the way the series is played out with so many one-goal games, low scoring, all of them, I have a feeling that the Sharks are going to find a way to win tonight, and they're going to send it to a Game 6, and they will end up winning on their home ice to force a Game 7, and then in that Game 7, the Penguins will be victorious. I don't see any scenario where the Sharks actually go on to win the next 3 games and win the Cup. Like, I don't see that happening. But half of me thinks the Penguins win it tonight in Game 5 at home. Half of me think the Penguins will win it in Game 7 at home. So there's my expert hockey mind predictions for the outcome. All right. And we do actually have one more bit of hockey news, as more local state of hockey, as a matter of fact, here before we get off balls on ice. and move on over to Balls Dribble. But that is the Minnesota Wild hiring a new assistant coach. Now, obviously, with the new head coach, Bruce Boudreau, in place, there's going to be, new members as assistant coaches. He's going to create his coaching staff, the same way that they do in most, if not all, sports. And it was announced today or yesterday that Scott Stevens is the newest assistant coach of my and possibly your Minnesota Wild. Now, for those of you who may not be all that familiar with who Scott Stevens is, he's a pretty big deal. Yeah, people know him. But anyway, Scott Stevens is a Hall of Famer as a player in the National Hockey League. He was on 3 Stanley Cup championship teams with the New Jersey Devils. Regarded as one of the best defensive defensemen of his era that he played, which is, I've been screaming for years, one of our, if not our, if it's not number one, it's 1B, area of weakness or area that we need to improve on, that just consistently, the team's so up and down and consistent. It's one of the very few areas that we do see consistency in on this hockey team year after year here lately in the state of hockey, and that is defensemen that can't play defense. So that I love that personally about the hire. I've also been told that he is a very hands-on, wonderful teaching type of coach as well, where he will, he's excellent at correctly identifying flaws in technique or approach to certain situations, and is just, is great at teaching, the little things and the fundamentals on how to be successful to players as well. Oh yeah, by the way, he went to 13 All-Star games. He's played in the second most career games amongst defensemen ever, behind Hall of Famer Chris Chelios. Never once had a minus season in his entire career. His success as a player proves his hockey IQ to be outstanding. And the thing that I heard brought up that I couldn't agree more, I just find it interesting that it comes from an assistant coach more than anything, is that this guy commands the respect and can take a firm stand with anyone in the locker room who's making a lot of money and underperforming, and all these chemistry and locker room and personality issues that you've heard us talk about here in Minnesota over the last couple years. He's got tons of money, so the players don't have that on him. And he's got 3 championship rings. So you combine those, the players, they have to respect him, for lack of a better word. But so that's great and all. But shouldn't that kind of again, that's your assistant coach that applies to, but it doesn't apply to your head coach? Who's really got the power? Who's really in charge here? Is this going to be another situation where, at some point in time the team hits some sort of downslide or losing stretch where they're not playing very well, and then all of a sudden you've got 5, 10, 15 guys in the locker room abandoning Boudreau and trying to push for Stevens? I don't know, and it wouldn't surprise me, because I think I'm not excited at all about the Boudreau hire. I told you guys this. That was what I was on fire about that week when it happened. I do not understand how it changes anything. We went from a team that backs into the playoffs every year and loses in the first or second round to a team that comfortably makes it into the playoffs every year and then loses in the first or second round. That doesn't change anything, okay? But, I've said this before, I've said it again. I'll say it one last time, and then we'll be done with Balls on Ice and move on to Balls Dribble. Until this front office for the Minnesota Wild start holding at least one, if not a few, players accountable for the